June 1941, near Salem, Egypt. A British infantry company, dug into the searing sand, watches 6 German Panzer III tanks maneuvering toward their position. This is the moment a modern war machine meets the infantrymen. The lieutenant, his voice tight, orders his anti-tank rifle team forward. 2 men, straining under the 55-pound weight of a boy's anti-tank rifle, deploy their weapon. This rifle, they were told, could punch through armor. They set up, aim at the lead tank's hull a distance of 200 yards and fire. The half-inch tungsten round strikes dead center. It leaves a fist-sized dent and ricochets harmlessly into the sand. The Panzer doesn't even slow down. 4 minutes later, that entire company is either dead or running. This wasn't an isolated failure. This was a strategic emergency playing out in real time, one bloody battlefield at a time. From 1939 through early 1942, German armor engineering had achieved a terrifying technological supremacy. Allied infantrymen were being sent to fight 30-ton war machines with weapons that were fundamentally useless. The Panzer III arrived with 50 millimeters of frontal armor. The Panzer IV boasted 80, and the Tiger I, which began appearing in late 1942, rolled into combat with a 100-millimeter wall of hardened steel. Against this, Allied foot soldiers had effectively nothing. Let's examine the arsenal of futility. The boy's anti-tank rifle, Britain's primary answer, could penetrate 21 millimeters of armor at 100 yards, and only under perfect, laboratory-like conditions. Combat was never perfect. The rifle weighed as much as 2 men's full kit, kicked hard enough to break collarbones, and couldn't reliably stop anything heavier than a light armored car. By 1941, the Americans had it even worse. Their designated anti-tank rifle was the 50 caliber M2 Browning machine gun. Against a moving Panzer, it was as effective as throwing rocks. Some units carried sticky bombs, devices requiring a soldier to sprint toward a 30-ton platform bristling with machine guns and attach it by hand. The survival rate was precisely what you'd expect. The British PIAT, or Projector Infantry Anti-Tank, launched a bomb using a massive spring. One British sergeant in North Africa described it as a drain pipe loaded with hope. What made this situation genuinely terrifying for Allied commanders was the revolution in German doctrine. This wasn't just about superior tanks. It was about combined arms. German tactical philosophy centered on panzers, infantry, and artillery all moving in a synchronized, overwhelming assault. When a panzer division attacked, an infantryman couldn't just hide and wait for his own tanks. His own tanks were likely already burning. This was the engine of blitzkrieg, and to stop it, the average 9-year-old rifleman needed something he could carry, aim, and fire before a panzer's machine gunner cut him in half. By late 1941, Allied war departments were receiving the same desperate message from every theater. Give us something portable that kills tanks, or we will lose this war, one shattered infantry company at a time. The problem wasn't courage. The problem was physics. Infantrymen were bringing 20 millimeters of penetration to an 80 millimeter armor fight. This was the crisis facing U.S. Army ordnance in early 1942. The solution arrived not from a vast research bureau, but from 2 Army officers in a Maryland workshop with a piece of pipe and a radical idea. Captain Leslie Skinner had been working on a handheld rocket grenade,
Blowing back, take cover!
but the rocket motor's backblast was powerful enough to injure the operator. Lieutenant Edward Uhl, watching a test, asked the obvious question, "What if we don't throw it? What if we just launch it from a tube?" A simple, open-ended tube would vent the exhaust backward, propelling the projectile forward. They tested the first prototype in May 1942. Uhl grabbed a piece of pipe from a scrap heap. They mounted it on a crude shoulder stock. It looked like something welded together during a lunch break, because it essentially was. The first test shot flew 60 yards. The tube didn't explode. The operator didn't die. General Gladian Barnes, Chief of Research for Army Ordnance, saw the demonstration and immediately ordered its development. By July, someone noted it looked like a musical instrument comedian Bob Burns played. This new weapon, the M1 rocket launcher,
We did it, Captain.
fired a
It actually
3.5-pound
fired
rocket
straight.
with a
Indeed,
shaped
Lieutenant.
charge
A
warhead.
momentous occasion.
In theory, this warhead could penetrate over 4 inches of armor plate. But in modern warfare, "in theory" is a phrase that gets men killed. The M1 Bazooka had a fatal flaw. Accuracy was atrocious. At 50 yards, point-blank range for tank combat, the rocket might land anywhere within a 20-foot circle. At 100 yards, the operator was essentially aiming at a general direction and praying. The problem was the smooth bore tube. With nothing to stabilize its flight, the rocket would tumble, corkscrewing through the air like a drunk pigeon. Field tests at Fort Benning were a disaster. Against stationary targets at 75 yards, the hit rate was 38%. Against moving targets, it dropped below 20%. The grim math was undeniable. This wasn't a weapon. It was a gamble with a 1 in 5 chance of success, where the cost of failure was your life. By December 1942, Army Ordnance faced a terrifying choice. Ship a weapon they knew was a death trap, or admit their miracle solution was a catastrophic failure. The proposal landed on Colonel William Crozier's desk at Aberdeen Proving Ground in January 1943. It was a grenade without a pin, delivered by a civilian ordnance consultant named Henry Mohaupt. Mohaupt, a Swiss-born engineer who had been instrumental in developing the shaped charge warhead itself, had spent 3 weeks analyzing the bazooka's accuracy failures. His conclusion was that the Army was approaching the problem entirely backward. His solution was simple, elegant, and, to the established military bureaucracy, completely heretical. He suggested they rifle the launch tube, cutting spiral grooves inside the smooth bore just like a traditional firearm. Crozier's response was immediate and absolute: no. His reasoning, on the surface, seemed sound. Rifling works by forcing a bullet to spin, stabilizing its flight. But the bazooka wasn't firing a bullet. It was firing a rocket with its own motor still burning. Crozier and his team argued that forcing a rocket to spin while its motor was actively creating thrust would introduce unpredictable aerodynamic forces. It might become even less accurate, or worse, the rocket could tumble and detonate prematurely. This was not just a technical objection. It was an institutional one. The U.S. Army, like all massive wartime organizations, ran on approved designs and established physics. What Mohaupt was suggesting was, in their view, a reckless gamble with unknown variables. There was another, unspoken concern that filled the room. Logistics. By early 1943, 14,000 M1 bazookas had already been manufactured. 3 factories were in full production. Thousands were already crated for shipment to North Africa, where Allied forces were locked in a brutal fight against Rommel's Panzers. If rifling proved necessary, every single tube would need to be scrapped or recalled and remanufactured. The cost would be astronomical, but the delay would be fatal. It would mean American troops, poised for the critical invasion of Sicily, would go into combat without an effective anti-tank weapon. Crozier was not just an engineer, he was a manager of a wartime supply chain, and Mohaupt's idea threatened to shatter it. But Mohaupt pushed back. He wasn't just an academic. He was one of the world's foremost experts on the very technology the bazooka relied upon. He brought data. His calculations showed that the rocket motor's brief burn time was actually an advantage. If the rifling spun the rocket during that initial acceleration phase, the projectile would maintain gyroscopic stability for the rest of its flight. The spin wouldn't fight the motor's thrust, it would harness it. Then, he delivered the checkmate. He pointed out something embarrassing and terrifying. The Germans were already doing it. Intelligence reports from captured Panzerschreck launchers, Germany's reverse-engineered copy of the American bazooka, showed the Germans had already identified the accuracy flaw and corrected it with rifled tubes. Their weapon was measurably better than the American original. This revelation shifted the context from a technical debate to a strategic failure. The enemy had stolen their design and perfected it, while they were preparing to ship a flawed weapon to their own men. The meeting ended with Crozier formally denying the proposal, citing insufficient testing data and unacceptable modification risk. But Mohaupt had one card left to play. He knew Captain Leslie Skinner, the bazooka's co-creator, and knew Skinner had a reputation for unconventional solutions. More importantly, Skinner had the ear of General Barnes. In a classic move of wartime desperation, Mohaupt went around the official channels. Within a week, he was briefing Barnes directly. The general listened to 15 minutes of physics, German intelligence reports, and gyroscopic stability. He then made a decision that would reshape American anti-armor doctrine. Approve construction of 3 rifled prototypes for comparison testing. If it fails, the project dies. If it succeeds, full production modifications begin immediately, regardless of cost. Colonel Crozier, having been overruled by his superior, now found himself in a difficult position. The standard military response to such a situation is to ensure the test conditions are so rigorous that success is nearly impossible. If rifling failed, Crozier would be proven right. If it succeeded, he could take credit for thorough verification. The test was set for January 28th, 1943. Before we get to that frozen morning, we must understand the physics of what was at stake. It's not just about hitting the target, it's about what happens at the target. A shaped charge warhead works by collapsing a copper cone inward at over 20,000 feet per second, creating a superheated jet of metal plasma that cuts through steel. But this jet must be formed perfectly. If the warhead hits at even a 15-degree angle, penetration drops by 30%. A smoothbore bazooka's tumbling rocket was hitting sideways, nose up, or at random angles, rendering the powerful warhead useless. Mohaupt's theory was that spin wouldn't just stabilize the rocket's flight, it would stabilize the jet formation itself. The 2,000 revolutions per minute spin would act like a gyroscope, ensuring the rocket stayed nose forward, hit the armor perpendicularly, and allowed the shaped charge to function at maximum capacity. His math predicted rifled rockets would deliver consistent nose-first impacts. Furthermore, the rifling would create a better gas seal, increasing the rocket's velocity by 8%. This meant a rifled bazooka wouldn't just be more accurate, it would hit harder and penetrate deeper. The theory was beautiful, but in war, theories are just theories. Testing is where they go to die. January 28th, 1943. Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. The temperature at 0600 hours was 18 degrees Fahrenheit, with a bitter wind cutting across the range. This was not a day for patient testing. It was a day for survival. But the war waited for no one. The Sicily invasion was on the calendar, and the men slated for that assault needed a weapon that worked. In the observation bunker, 15 officers and engineers, including Colonel Crozier, General Barnes, Captain Skinner, and the civilian Henry Mohaupt, watched through fogged-up glass. The atmosphere was thick with professional tension. Downrange, engineers had mounted captured German armor plates, actual 80mm hull sections from Panzer IVs, seized in North Africa. This was the target. The test protocol was simple and brutal. 20 shots with the standard M1 smoothbore bazooka at 50 yards. 20 shots with Mohaupt's rifled prototypes at the same range. Hit rate, penetration, depth, and consistency would be documented. First up, the baseline, the standard issue smoothbore. A sergeant from the test detachment shouldered the M1, aimed, and fired. The rocket left the tube with its familiar, smoky whoosh. It struck the plate 2 feet left of center. The downrange crew called back the measurement. Penetration of 3.8 inches into the backing clay. A decent hit, but not deep enough to guarantee a kill inside a Panzer's crew compartment. Shot 2, 4.1 inches. Shot 3, a complete miss, sailing wide right. This was the exact, catastrophic inaccuracy that had brought them to this frozen field. Shot 4, 3.5 inches. Shot 5, 4.4 inches. The pattern was a lack of pattern. By shot 15, the data was clear. Out of 15 attempts, there were 11 hits. Penetration varied wildly from 3.2 to 4.6 inches. 4 misses at 50 yards point-blank range spoke volumes. One rocket had tumbled so badly it hit the plate sideways and failed to detonate properly. The smoothbore bazooka was, by the official data, marginally effective at best, and a suicide mission at worst. Then came Mohaupt's prototypes. The tubes had been modified with shallow spiral grooves, a 1-in-1 6-inch twist rate. The first rifled shot was fired. It flew perfectly straight. It struck the target dead center. A sharp crack echoed back. The engineers downrange examined the impact, paused, and then called out the measurement. The observation bunker went silent. Penetration,
Next item,
7.2 inches.
B1E1.
Second shot, 7.4 inches. Third shot, 6.9 inches. Fourth shot, 7.1 inches. Fifth shot,
The new M9
7.3 inches.
Devastating.
Every
So the
single
massive
rocket flew
backblast
true.
often obscured
Every
the target
rocket hit
entirely.
nose first. Every rocket was penetrating nearly double the smooth bore average, with devastating consistency. Colonel Crozier, seeing his institutional certainty vaporized in real time, asked for the test to pause, demanding the measurement methodology be verified. The engineers downrange remeasured every rifled impact. The numbers held. The test resumed. The 15th rifled shot was aimed at the thickest test plate. 8 inches of rolled homogeneous armor, the equivalent of a Tiger I tank's glacis protection. The rocket hit, detonated, and sent a spray of molten metal through the air. The downrange crew waited 30 seconds for the plate to cool, then called back the measurement. Complete penetration. The shaped charge jet had burned through all 8 inches and 2.3 inches into the clay backing behind it. General Barnes stood up. According to the official report, he said 5 words: "Run the next 5 shots." Crozier objected, stating sufficient data had been collected. Barnes overruled him. The test continued. Shots 16 through 20 were not just a confirmation, they were an exclamation point. 7.8 inches, 8.1 inches, 7.6 inches, 7.9 inches, 8 inches. Not a single shot missed.
Sir, but I worry
Not
about
a single shot
lines.
penetrated less than 7.6 inches.
Risky.
The consistency was what shocked the ballistic specialists. The smooth bore's penetration varied by 36%. The rifled tube's penetration varied by only 6%. You could trust this weapon. The observers moved downrange to examine the plates. The smooth bore impacts were irregular, some showing deflection.
Good heavens.
Where the rocket hit at an angle. The rifled impacts were all identical. Clean, circular, and perfectly perpendicular. The data was compiled back in the bunker, and it was devastating.
Look at that grouping.
Hit probability
Right
at 50 yards.
Quite remarkable
Smooth
indeed.
bore 73%. Rifled 100%. Average penetration. Smooth bore 3.9 inches. Rifled 7.7 inches. But one statistic mattered more than any other. The probability of defeating the 80mm frontal armor of a Panzer IV. For the smooth bore bazooka, it was approximately 15%. For the rifled bazooka, it was 97%. In one frozen morning, Henry Mohaupt's reckless theory had just given the Allied infantrymen a fighting chance. General Barnes convened an immediate meeting.
We need reinforcements.
The question wasn't if they would adopt rifling. It was how
0800
fast.
hours.
Yes, General.
Logistics officers reported that 6,000 smooth-bore units were already deployed to active theaters. A recall was logistically impossible. Barnes made the call. Rifle everything in stateside inventory immediately. Begin manufacturing new tubes with rifling as standard. The first rifled bazookas, designated M1A1, reached combat units in April 1943, just in time for the final push in Tunisia. A new era in infantry warfare had begun. The first rifled bazookas reached combat units in April 1943, and the impact was immediate. This was not a minor upgrade. It was a fundamental shift in battlefield physics. During the final push against German forces in Tunisia, Staff Sergeant Julius River's after-action report from April 23rd became legendary within ordnance circles. His team engaged a Panzer IV at 70 yards, fired a single shot, and watched the tank brew up as the crew bailed out. First shot, total kill. He wrote that his men couldn't believe the damn thing actually worked like they promised. That statement reveals a profound psychological shift. The infantry's drain pipe, loaded with hope, had suddenly been replaced by a weapon of predictable, lethal certainty. By June, U.S. industrial might had pivoted. Production shifted entirely to rifled models. The M9 rocket launcher, an improved version with better sights and a crucial two-piece tube for easier transport by airborne and amphibious forces, began rolling off assembly lines. These were the weapons that landed at Salerno in September 1943. As the 36th Infantry Division fought desperately to hold the beachhead against ferocious German Panzer counterattacks, the M9 proved its strategic worth. Lieutenant Colonel William Darby's Ranger battalions reported their bazooka teams accounted for 11 confirmed tank kills in the first 3 days. In the brutal calculus of a beachhead, where infantry has no room to retreat, the ability to kill armor without waiting for your own tanks to land was the difference between victory and annihilation. Then came Anzio in January 1944.
The American forces
This
on the beachhead were
was the
completely
true
trapped,
stress test.
facing overwhelming
German
German
forces threw
resistance from the
everything
hills.
at the Allied beachhead, including the Tiger I, a heavy tank that earlier smoothbore bazookas couldn't scratch even on their best day. But the M9's 8-inch penetration capability meant that even the Tiger was now vulnerable. Private First Class James Arnes, later the actor from Gunsmoke, served as a bazooka gunner at Anzio. He described stalking a Tiger through rubble, knowing that if you got the shot off clean, you'd kill it. That confidence was the new, invisible force multiplier. The myth of the Tiger's invincibility, a psychological weapon more potent than its 88mm gun, had been shattered by a two-man team with a rifled tube. On D-Day, June 6th, 1944, every American infantry company that hit Utah and Omaha carried at least 4 bazooka teams. Here, their value transcended anti-tank warfare. The rifled accuracy allowed teams to engage fortified German positions. A smooth-bore rocket hitting a concrete gun embrasure was luck. A rifled rocket was precision. After-action reports from the 29th Infantry Division noted bazooka teams cleared 12 pillboxes on Omaha Beach, silencing machine gun nests and allowing the infantry to push inland. The breakout from Normandy, Operation Cobra, became the bazooka's proving ground. In the dense hedgerow country, armored warfare was claustrophobic, fought at knife-fighting ranges. This was exactly the scenario the bazooka was designed for. The 4th Infantry Division logged 37 confirmed armor kills with bazookas during Cobra's first week. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 tested this new doctrine to its limit. Isolated infantry units, cut off in fog and snow, defended vital crossroads against elite German Panther and Tiger tanks. At Bastogne, the 101st Airborne used M9 launchers to knock out at least 18 German tanks during the siege. Captain James O'Neill of the 502nd Parachute Infantry reported ambushing a Panther column, killing 3 tanks in under 2 minutes from building positions. This was the ultimate vindication of Mohaupt's theory. In the hands of freezing, desperate men, the weapon's consistency held the line. By the time American forces crossed the Rhine in March 1945, bazookas had accounted for over 800 confirmed German armor kills. But that number hides the real story. The true impact was deterrence. German Panzer doctrine, built on the shock and terror of the tank, was broken. Every hedgerow, every ruined building, every ditch could now hide a two-man team that had a 97% chance of killing them. The rifled bazooka forced German armor to become cautious, slowing the advance and giving the initiative back to the infantrymen. The Aberdeen test, on January 28, 1943, did more than create a
This is the
single
legacy of the
weapon.
anti-tank weapon.
It wrote
From
the
early
doctrine
bazooka designs
for the
to
next
modern
80
AT-4,
years of
we see a clear
warfare.
progression in
Every
effectiveness
infantry
and portability.
anti-tank weapon that followed, from the M20 Super Bazooka that stopped T-34 seconds in Korea, to the M72 LAW in Vietnam, to the modern AT-4, all began with one fundamental, non-negotiable assumption. That cold morning, Henry Mohaupt didn't just prove a theory. He gave the foot soldier a fighting chance, and in doing so, changed the face of modern war.